Hi everybody, I'm Bill Watson, and today we're going to show you how to inspect and replace the Singletree bushings on the new Heritage Farm carriage. To do this task today, there's certain tools that you're going to need, and I've laid them out on the floor here, and I'll discuss each one of them. The first thing that you're going to need to get is a digital caliper. These are available on Amazon or Harbor Freight. Generally costs about $20 to $25. They have to be capable of measuring down to 0.03 millimeters or 1/1000th of an inch in order to complete this task. The second tool is a dead blow hammer. This has got a soft base on it, so it will not damage the bushings when it comes into contact with them. 3/8 drive ratchet and breaker bar with a 10 millimeter hex drive adapter to remove the Singletree bolt. You'll need some sort of a punch in order to remove the bushings. The hammer is here just to aid with punching the old bushings out of the Singletree, and then a couple of blocks to support the Singletree while you're driving the bushings out. Now, the first task is to evaluate the Singletree and see how much play that it has in it, and if it's excessive. You'll note that this Singletree exhibits a couple of things right now that tells you it has worn bushings. One is the side-to-side wiggling. You can see that it's quite loose. I've seen on some carriages where this is so loose it begins to hit the frame of the carriage. It also front to back. And actually, this is normally the biggest point of wear. So, this indication right here is that this set of bushings on this particular Singletree need to be replaced. Okay, our first task is to remove the Singletree. In order to do that, you use the 10 millimeter hex drive socket and just place it in the head of the bolt on the Singletree and then loosen it. This may require more force than I can use depending upon your individual circumstances. So you may need a longer handle or maybe a piece of pipe to assist with loosening the bolt initially. But you can see once you've got it loose, it comes out quite easily. Bolt mostly loose now. Now, one thing I will point out that this is actually the incorrect bolt for this application. The bolt that should be used is actually a shoulder bolt, so it should be smooth on the top and only threaded on the bottom. This is a fully threaded bolt, and so it causes excessive wear on the bushings. And actually, you've seen I'm having to thread the entire bolt out right now because it's cut threads into the bushing. But I'll have it all the way out here. Okay, now the bolt's been removed, you can see this bolt is fully threaded. It really should be smooth almost all the way down to the bottom threads in order to be the correct bolt and not cause excessive wear on the bushing. But with the bolt removed, the Singletree can now be removed from the carriage. On a good day. There we go. And that's it. Looking at the Singletree and the bushings, you can see that it has two what they call flange bushings that are installed top and bottom. And in order to remove these, you have to use that punch we talked about earlier to knock out one of the bushings, and I can use a press to take out the other one or a punch. Go ahead and okay. Now at this point, I'll show you how we're going to get the bushings out. You'll notice that there's two bushings, top and bottom, and there should be a slight gap between the two of them. That allows you to use a punch like this in order to get on the edge of the bottom bushing, supported by these pieces of lumber. Then just
Voila.
There's the bushing. To do the other side, oftentimes in my shop I have a press so I can press them out, but if you don't have a press, you just use a hammer. And the bushings are removed. Now note that both the top and bottom have the threads of the bolts cut into the bushings. That was really the mechanism of failure with this bushing. Photos of some other bushings that actually had smooth bolts but wore oblong holes and caused excessive wear and play in the Okay, now we're going to talk about measuring the bushings that were removed in order to get bushings that will fit your particular Singletree. There's really three critical dimensions that you need to get in order to have correct bushings sent. The most critical is actually the diameter of the bushing, and that would be the inside diameter of what's called the barrel portion of the bushing. The flange portion thickness is important, but not its outside diameter so much. So we're going to use the digital caliper. We're going to measure the outside diameter of this bushing. You see this bushing is 29.15 millimeters. I might check it in several places, but these things stick fairly close to measurement. If I check the opposing bushing, it should be the same. Yeah, very close. Second feature I want to measure is the thickness of the flange on these bushings. Now, you'll note, particularly on this bushing right here, the wear has actually reduced the flange thickness on one point of it. And so you want to make sure when you measure the flange thickness that you measure it on an unworn portion. Okay, this is approximately 4.85 millimeters. 5 millimeters is nominal for these, so that's to be expected. Third measurement, very important again, is the overall length. This one, 19.35. Again, look out for the worn portion of the bushing because you'll get an inaccurate length reading that way. We'll just check the other bushing. Yeah, about 19.5 millimeters overall length. And the flange thickness again should be right around 5. And there it is, right around 5. It's very important these bushings not be very long. You saw how I drove the bushings out of the Singletree. One thing that can happen is the bushings oppose one another, and if there's no gap between them, there's no way to drive the bushings out again. So it's important that when bushings are ordered, that there not be any longer than the ones that were already installed in the Singletree. Okay, I'd like to pick up where we broke before. You might remember that I talked about the difference between the fully threaded bolts and the shoulder bolts. This is the original bolt that was taken out that led to the failure of the bushings. You do not want to use this type bolt in this application. The correct bolt is actually this shoulder bolt right here. This is a 16 millimeter by 120 millimeter shoulder bolt. These are very hard to find, but in the case of a Poj-Kon carriage where the Singletree nut is welded to the frame, you have to use this bolt. Some Poj-Kon carriages actually use through bolts and use a self-locking nut on the bottom. An alternative to those, in that they're so hard to find, is a 5/8 bolt. They're actually almost identical in size. And so a 5/8 by 4.5 or 5-inch shoulder bolt using a flathead socket drive is actually a good alternative if you can bolt all the way through the frame. And these are available from Grainger, McMaster-Carr, Fastenal. Any of those sources would be a great source for these bolts if you can use them. Now going back to where we finished the last time, these are the new bushings that are going to be installed in this carriage. And you can see in comparing it to the old bushing, they're the same diameter, and I've actually measured these, same diameter, same shoulder height, approximately the same length. This is really important because Poj-Kon makes alternative bushings that are that style right there, and you can see in the video that that bushing is quite a bit taller. The problem with these is they're too tall. They'll actually touch one another on the inside of the Singletree, making it so that the stack-up height will be too high to fit. The other problem will be that you never get them out because there's no edge to drive against when you're trying to remove them. So, that's something to keep in mind. If you get bushings that are significantly different height than the ones that came out, you'll need to have them cut down or have other bushings provided for you that are actually the correct height. So next step, remember the rubber or dead blow mallet from the first part of the video. We're going to use that to tap these new bushings into the Singletree top and bottom. It's important to use a dead blow or a rubber mallet to do this to avoid damaging the new bushings, and do it against a piece of wood. And the new bushings are in. We'll feed the Singletree back into the frame. At this point, what I'd recommend is using a little bit of grease on these. Brass or any other copper alloy is regarded as self-lubricating, so they don't actually require grease, but this will help at least a little bit in terms of both corrosion protection, as well as you'll maybe prevent some squeaks. So it does not require a lot, a little bit on the bolt and a little bit on the top and bottom surfaces. Now we'll see if this slides in nicely. Okay, actually this is instructive. The bushings were worn in the case of this carriage, and so the bracket was tightened down several times, and sometimes we'll run into a difficulty where the clearance is a little bit too low. You might actually have to stretch that top bracket a little bit. In order to do that, I brought this crescent wrench along, and you can grab the top bracket like that. And actually just pulled up a little bit. Try one more time. Okay, now that we have the new bushing in place, all we have to do is reinstall the bolt. Then using our 10mm hex drive, tighten the bolt. Now, as you get close to tight, you want to start testing the Singletree, particularly side to side. This is the part that will start to bind if it's too tight. And there we have it. This is complete. Thank you for watching this video, and We'll try to provide more videos in the future as to maintaining your New Heritage Farm carriages.